behind the curve. They are in the
Yeah. This is good.
We got Netta with Mr. King here. That has caused this. Dr. West in the building. Jelani in the building. It's almost like a light switch found on. Maybe I don't even have this, but I'm thinking and I mean it's
I never met her. I gave her something.
right now. I mean, that's the other thing. We feel that
Out to the forefront.
I love to be
Divine
there.
priorities.
I love to be there. But you know, I'm not clergy, but I love to talk with my clergy brothers and sisters. I'm just a lay brother. Y'all know
We
that.
need that.
Well,
We need that.
no, but I salute my clergy brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? I salute my clergy brothers. But you know, I love to be in conversation.
I know.
Look at me doing, man. You're looking strong enough.
Thank you.
How you doing there? You looking wonderful.
Bless you, brother.
Greetings
Greetings from Bishop Plaza.
Oh, Lord.
Greetings. She said, send her greetings. Indeed. I'm going to be with you on Saturday. We're going to Chicago. I will be sure to do that.
Y'all keep your prayers, and the prayers make a difference.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Bless you,
Oh,
sir.
Lord.
Dr. West, I know everybody wants a piece. I was just hoping you could give a couple quick words of encouragement for the ground in Ferguson. People on the ground in Ferguson.
Yeah, know that you brothers and sisters in Ferguson and set the world on fire for justice. I want you to realize that. Stay strong in what you're doing. Keep John Coltrane, Love Supreme strong. Curtis Mayfield is smiling at you from the grave, and so is Nina Simone. We love you.
Strategically, where do we go from here, Dr. West?
Well, strategically, you need a federal prosecution. You got to start sending these police to jail when they shoot precious young black brothers and sisters or brown brothers and sisters. You got to have federal prosecution, and then in the end, we need fundamental transformation.
Other than marching up and down the street, what else can we do?
Well, you got to keep the pressure on the federal government to have an investigation, start sending police to jail. And beyond that, we're just talking about revolution. We need a fundamental transformation in the nation. We need transfer of power and wealth from the oligarchs to everyday people, but that's a large issue. But I got the marching out.
Have a good one, though. Okay, love it. All right, love you too.
Right. Nice to see you.
Okay, sir. Mr. King, how are you? My name is Talal Ahmad. I'm here from Ferguson, and I was just hoping that you could offer a couple quick words of encouragement for the kids on the ground in Ferguson, advice and like as far as like what do you think we could do other than like marching to like get some kind of like justice and change and sovereignty here in America.
First of all, I must commend the young people who are consistently marching and protesting and demonstrating in Ferguson. You will never know what each of you are, that you're doing, how important it is for our nation and the world, and particularly for generations yet unborn, perhaps your children. I would first start and say it's unfortunate that the circumstances that exist call for a level of action, but it is wonderful that you have stepped up to assume your rightful role. Every movement throughout our history has been fueled by the energy of young people. It hasn't been necessarily led by old. In fact, very rarely have old people led anything. So it is so appropriate. I think back to the leadership of my dad when he started in Montgomery. He was 26 years old. and he was not an older person.
Speaking of which, Mr. King, for us, it's really frustrating that we have to, in 2014, do the same thing that your dad did 60 years ago, and it just seems like it's not getting us anywhere. Marching up and down the road. Do you have like any other strategies or techniques or advice as far as like other things that we could do to actually more impactful things to actually get change?
I think that change begins when we identify people to represent us who will truly represent our interests. This is a constructive and instructive criticism. Around our nation, many do not vote, and voting in large numbers helps to elect the kind of elected officials who are responsible for establishing policy that affects the entire community. When we don't participate or participate in minimum numbers, others come to the table. And for example, in Missouri, there's a problem in communities of color with the prosecuting attorney, McCullough. But I guarantee you that the voting percentage of African Americans and people of goodwill who believe there are problems didn't vote in the last few elections.
And so speaking of that, Mr. King, and I don't want to hold you all morning, but like we're really disenchanted with the political process and the system together. So in a way, we put a man who looks just like us in the Oval Office, and then he put a man who looks just like us as the head of the Department of Justice, and these people who look just like us, who we had all this hope in, can't even protect us from people who work for them. And so like when it comes to voting and like our elders telling us to vote, like we're just totally disenchanted with the system, and we feel that it's a system that is set, and it doesn't matter who we put in these seats, who we put in these offices, because the system has a current so strong and so evil that you either when you put good people into offices, either they're corrupted or they are spit out by it. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say this, because what we do, we often elect those who are older. And I don't mean at the level of president. I'm talking about at the local level. There are people. If you're 21 years old, if one goes to college, and goes through ROTC, they are a commanding officer in the military at 21. They're a lieutenant when they graduate from college. That means you have the leadership to lead platoon officers. Well, at 21 years old, you can also run for most city council positions, most school board positions, most county commission positions. And until we get more young people who are leading, not following someone else's lead, young people have got to be engaged in that way. In fact, I think more young people leading in the political process will cause other young people to get excited about the political process, and then there'll be less likely of a scenario for people to be co-opted or corrupt. And I also think that, again, the street heat or the demonstrating creates a consciousness that eventually the system has to address itself. It has to be addressed. It has to change. And it's often darkest, they say, before dawn. So it's the darker hours seem to be happening right now. But I can assure you,
it seems to have been happening for the last couple hundred centuries here.
Yeah, and all that's true. But then again, at some point, the other thing that we have to do, and I think Brother alluded to it from the St. Louis area, is we don't love ourselves. Black people in America last year spent $1 trillion. Now, what we did was we bought in all of that, and we spent it back out getting clothes and purses and stuff that, it's nice to have. But we're not reinvesting in our community. Can you imagine, for example, we have no black banks in America that have $1 billion. We spent $1 trillion. $1 billion is less than 1% of $1 trillion. And I'm just saying that at some point, we've got to figure out what it is that keeps us from supporting us.
Well, our conditioning has been conditioned. One last question, sir, because I'll probably never see you again, and this is really epic, and these are questions that I've been wanting to ask, people like you for a while. What are your thoughts on this global system of white supremacy? First of all, it being a global system of white supremacy, and What are your thoughts on, us and generations, younger than mine, being so disenchanted with the system, with the economic system, with the political system, knowing that it's a very wicked system, and us feeling like there's just no hope, and in regards to how much money we save or who we vote for, that really not being enough leverage to combat this global wicked system that even has had a very detrimental impact on your family.
I would have to
us?
disagree that we cannot have an impact. It really was a few good women and men in my father's era. It wasn't masses that brought about change. And today, a few good women and men around the world. You're right, the system certainly has wickedness in it. But it's the people who must, when the people come together, are educated, informed, and understand how to advance and change the system, because the people are supporting the system. The people, we could, for example, I'm not suggesting that this is what we do, it's just an idea. If we chose to boycott Christmas as people of color, it would, every last one of those institutions that we chose not to embrace would be at the table helping to resolve the problems that exist within our community.
A lot of us boycotted by default because we ain't got nothing anyway.
Well, that's not, we may not have anything, but collectively we do find a way to get the things we want. We almost buy what we want and beg for what we need. And so we need to change that philosophy to somehow garner what we need. And later, I mean, when you get what you need, you can buy ultimately anything that you want. But we gotta stop supporting a system that does not support us. And that was done. I'll give you one example. In 1956, 55, when Miss Park sat on the bus for 381